In this episode of Elevating Our Stories, we've got a slew of guests who are ready to speak on contractor workforce development, making water affordable, and the overall health of climate action in Chicagoland. You'll meet Damon A. Williams and Daniel Kisslinger of Respair Media and AirGo podcast co-hosts, and Justin Keller, strategist from the water programs at Elevate. I'm Sylvia Ewing, and I'll be joined by co-hosts Pastor Booker Vance and Amrit Sooch later in the show. But up first is a conversation I've been looking forward to about workforce development in the clean energy economy. I'm happy to be joined by my co-workers, Lace. And Lace, you have a new last name, right? Because you got married. What's your new last name, Lace?
Roberts.
Lace Roberts. And how long are you still a newlywed?
Yeah, I would say so. This year make 2 years.
Aw, so I call it that.
Yeah.
And Tina Marie Williamson, who's been here before. Welcome back, Tina.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start by telling our audience at home what you do at Elevate. What's your role? And Lace, I'll start with you.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I am Lace Roberts. I've been working at Elevate for 10 years. I work as the project manager for workforce development. So primarily in that role, I work with trainees to help them get training to become solar installers and also help them with job placement.
I love it. You hear us talk about clean energy economy all the time. We're learning more about it today. Tina, what about your role? Remind us.
I am the coordinator for workforce and contractor development on the workforce team, and I'm a supporting role to project managers like Lace when we place people in jobs and building relationships with our partners, contractors, and students.
I know that this is a work of passion for both of you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick with you, Tina. Why do you do what you do?
I love what I do, and I do what I do because making an impact in this world and helping people find their purpose is so fulfilling on a personal level that for me the reward is being able to bridge my professional life with my personal passions and faith as well.
I like that. And Lace, what about you?
Very similar to what Tina said. It's more so for me about giving back. I feel like there's so much going on in this world, and everyone should have the responsibility to give back in some form or fashion. And for me, this is by grabbing those returning citizens, getting them an opportunity to work in the industry and change their life. That way they can also reduce gun violence and just different things that happen in communities.
I like that. So that's why you do it, a little bit about your role. What are you working on now? And I think there's a light bulb initiative, right?
Yeah, we have a couple of projects that's going on right now. So with the light bulb project, it's a partnership between Elevate, Soul, as well as BSC. And pretty much they provide support and technical assistance to small businesses that's in the construction industry. So they actually get back office support, access to different type of certifications and other resources to help enhance their business.
And I know Soul is a couple of partners based on the South Side. And what's the other organization?
BSC, which is Business Services Collective.
I like it. So you're working with partners. How can other people get involved or participate in the program? And I'll ask either of you.
I would say go to our website. All the information is there. I do want to also mention we have a solar training program that's starting March 1st. And that's going to be on the North Lawndale community, Chicago. Yes, so we'll be starting at March 1st.
I'm really excited because the North Lawndale Employment Network is an old school organization. Many of our viewers may know them for their honey.
Yes, I had their frap the other day. It was so good, so good.
Well, making a difference in the community. What are you all looking forward to in 2024? Any other programs or initiatives that you're working on?
We also have the Contract Accelerator. We're recruiting for that now. So with the Contract Accelerator, we're looking for businesses that's been in business for 2 to 5 years. And then with that one, it's cohort based. So they would actually get the access as well to different resources such as the back office support, what else is it? The general contracting,
different certifications?
Yeah, different certifications that's in the construction industry. So it's really, really good for individuals that want to enhance their business operations.
What I like about what you all do is you see the whole person and the whole organization.
Yeah.
You don't have to be perfect
Absolutely.
to start. But what's the population that you're particularly recruiting for?
So when it comes to our solar training, primarily we look for returning citizens. Of course, that's individuals who have a background.
Previously incarcerated.
Yep, as well as someone that may have been in the foster care system, and then those that reside in environmental justice communities. And of course, we try our hardest to get women in the industry.
What about veterans?
Veterans as well, yep.
I love it. So we've learned a little bit about you, what you do. You've reminded me that you're still a newlywed.
Yes.
In the coming months, is there anything else that you're looking forward to than that you're excited to invite our audience to pay attention to?
The only thing that pops out to me will be one is the solar training program that I mentioned that starts March 1st, as well as the Contractor Accelerator that's starting. We're doing the recruiting now. So those two programs would be the ones that stand out. What do you think?
Yes, that, and I'm thinking of contractors and employers that are looking for
Yes.
men and women for their workforce.
Yes.
I encourage them to reach out to us and check our website, look our information up, and I would love to have conversations with them more individually to discuss how we could maybe work together and bring workforce to their table.
And to brag on you a little bit, I understand that with our last cohort of trainees that you were able to get a number of people jobs.
Yes, our last cohort, which completed in June of 2023, we had 15 graduates, of men and women, and 30 days from their graduation, 14 of those men and women were placed in jobs.
14 out of 15, yep.
Yes,
You go.
sustainable jobs, and then our 15th person is in an internship program for the next year that's leading to opportunities.
Well, you heard it here. They are making a difference. They are working with community. You hear a lot about the money that is available from many of the federal initiatives, state initiatives. Illinois still is a leader because of the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act that we passed. We're a model for others in finding employment. And we want to make sure that these changes, jobs, and opportunities are in your community, not just something that you see on TV. So thank you so much. I've been joined by my colleagues, Marie Williamson, coordinator from the Workforce and Contractor Development team, and Lace Roberts, her first time on the program, project manager for Workforce Development. So stay tuned because we are going to move on to yet another segment. There's so much more to follow. Don't go away. We'll be excited to welcome two new guests on Elevating Our Stories.
We're excited to welcome Damon Williams and Daniel Kisslinger, host of the multi-generational look at the story of Hazel Johnson, a visionary of the environmental justice movement and the resident of the Algale Gardens community on the far south side of Chicago. On our show today, we are thankful to hear their story, and thank you for coming to be with us this afternoon.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate you.
What brought you together? Tell the story behind your origins.
For sure. You want to take the first shot at it?
So Daniel and I, we met in college. So we both went to a small school in Iowa called Grinnell College, where, through common friends and mutual acquaintances and a few collective endeavors, we built a very healthy respect for each other. And so I came back home, he moved here from New York, and we found ourselves really overlapping in a few spaces. So one, the independent hip hop, poetic, open mic scene, but then really in 2014 and into 2015, as you have the emergence of the Black Lives Matter movement, participation in liberatory resistance organizing. And so once we saw that we had some similar skills, but also we were drawn to be present in the same, what we seen to be historical spaces. It felt pretty evident that there was a fruitful collaboration between
That's
us.
exciting. So how did you get in touch with the big dog, Elevate? Because, Elevate's a wonderful
Don
big
Dada.
company.
Most of the good things that have happened in our lives have run through the Ewing family. So Sylvia's been a wonderful mentor, partner, and collaborator over the years. And it was back before pandemic, actually, it was in 2019. We developed a show with them called Climate Change Makers, where each interview was a long-form interview with different environmental justice movement workers, people working toward sustainability and affordability in terms of housing and energy. And so we did 2 seasons of that, where each episode we did, I think, close to 20 interviews total. Each episode was a different conversation with a different person all over the country. And in the midst of preparing to do the second season, and for both of us really being in this deeper dive around environmental justice, we came across the name of Hazel Johnson. And it was a name that, maybe rang a bell for us, but wasn't someone who we really knew the story of. And as we started digging, we felt like, one, there was a story to be told that would have been helpful for us to learn, as media makers, as documentarians, but really as participants in movement. And we couldn't find an example of someone having told that story in full. And so we came to our partners at Elevate and we said, we have this idea, and they've been incredible collaborators, thought partners, really have built this with us in a beautiful way. And we're so excited to, from the beginning of an idea to now being in the world and going in places we didn't expect. It's been beautiful.
That's exciting. The thing that I want to back up a second, tell me about Respair.
Sure.
And what's that engaged? Because that seems like that's supposed to be in the middle of that. But
You got the timeline. You got it.
Yeah, so Respair is something that's been launched in the last year and a half. And it's really a retroactive launching because it is the home or the umbrella of the work that we've been doing going on a decade now. So Respair is a movement media organization that does not only support our work and our flagship show AirGo, but works to manage and nurture partnerships in this really rich ecosystem that exists here in Chicago and beyond, in the connection or the overlap of grassroots movement organizations, but also independent media that is looking to have a more explicitly transformative or liberatory lens on how we distribute information, how we develop communication, and how we learn about how we shift these systems that have such deep impacts on our lives.
So I'm excited because I saw the documentary. It was great work. The funny part about it is my history is I know Barack when he came, and I also know Hazel Johnson's daughter, and I know some of the history. And so talk to me a little bit about this creative idea, this wonderful project, and what you're thinking about where you want this to go, because this is a start. This ain't the end. This is a start. So how do you help this garden grow?
Great question. So first of all, I love talking about this project with people who, what for us is history, for them is memory. I think that's been something that's been really fun on and off mic doing this whole project is, this is not something that happened 200 years ago. The people, the spaces, the organizations, some of the coalitions even, are consistent, and that's part of the legacy we're trying to talk about. So I love that for you, we're like, in 1983, and you're like, yeah, I know, I was there. And so, in short, Help This Garden Grow is a audio documentary series telling the story of the life and legacies of Hazel Johnson. And that's so much more than like a biography. It's really understanding the interconnected web of the environmental justice movement, how that was nurtured by her and her contemporaries, and then the ripples of that across the city, the region, the country, and the world. So, this goes from, a specific landfill and dumping site next to the gardens to the White House multiple times, to international summits, and then right back to the same community that this work has been based in. And so I think in terms of, and Dame, you can speak to it too, but where we want this to live and where we're seeing it live is on all of those scales. We of course want as many people to hear this story as possible, but also we want it to be of use for the people doing the work that's in Hazel's legacy now. And so that takes a lot of different forms, but it's been really exciting to see that already happening for, the contemporary work that PCR is doing, People for Community Recovery, for this program, for this piece that we made to be useful for them in different ways now. That's really been the goal from Jump, is to contribute to the work that they're doing that we see as historic and important.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say, in terms of where we want to go, there's two really main goals. One, they're equally as important. One's a little bit softer and attainable, is that for wherever folks are, take care of their shoebox, as Hazel says. So, no matter what neighborhood or community you're in, start to pay attention to the air quality, start to pay attention to the health of your neighbors, start to pay attention to how housing and labor affects your community, because all of that is a part of our environment. So start with this notion of inquiry and asking tough questions. And then a little bit more tangible or concrete level, through doing the work and through the research, it was clear that there is a very direct way that Hazel Johnson's legacy should be honored, and that is through the building of the Hazel Johnson Environmental Justice Institute in Altgeld Gardens. And so while she was alive, this was her vision. Her daughter and the organization have worked really hard to maintain the building where this can be. And so in terms of how do we help this garden grow, I think everyone in the city, everyone in the country should bring their institutional resources, bring their grassroots support to making this a reality, so we can have a next generation of environmental scientists, of organizers, of policymakers, of community facilitators, so that we can actually build a more sustainable future.
So tell me a little bit about what are you thinking? What's the vision, the dream about kicking this out and pushing it down to others?
For sure. So we have a couple of things in the works that I think are good models for what we're hoping that this can, the seeds of this show can turn into and grow into. We were approached by a community theater group here in Chicago that's been around for decades called Free Street Theater. They do wonderful work, and they're actually doing, their youth ensemble is writing a play born out of the podcast that'll be going up in May, which we're really excited about. We're also working to build some kind of book club, listening club models so that people can be listening to the show, together, having it as a jumping off point for conversation. And so if that's something that people are interested, they can come to us and we can help provide some resources and support for building out this kind of listening club, book club model. And then, think about, like Damon said, in your own shoebox, where are the spaces where, things don't quite make sense, where there are questions that feel unanswered. And as Hazel says, do the work of trying to find those answers and don't stop till you get them.
Amen. We're so thankful for Help the Garden Grow, but right now I want to ask a little bit before we close out about you guys. Mm-hmm. What are you looking forward to, and how you see this kind of playing itself out? Next steps.
Well, I think what I'm looking forward to on a structural level is that there's so much that Hazel was fighting for that was ignored or marginalized that is closer to becoming a structural reality. So as we see her daughter, Cheryl Johnson, who was a partner and the lead character of this story, engaging with the mayor's office or on transition committees, one thing Hazel really fought for was the notion of cumulative impact. And that was pushed away. So when we say cumulative impact, it's not just one chemical, it's not just one structural issue that is affecting our bodies, it's compounding. And so you can't have just one culprit, there are multiple factors. And that was at first ignored by the EPA and ignored by the city agencies. And now that's the framework with which the EPA works with, and the framework that is legislated in the city of Chicago. So now that we have this structural reality, some of the transformations and some of the protections and some of the visions that Hazel, that sometimes was screaming out and nobody was listening to, are what the norm is. So what does that make possible? And it's been really an honor to see the legacy. So when we say the show is not just a biography, it's not just about her life, it's really about the legacy which is embodied through so many movement workers today. And so we were able to partner with PCR and Cheryl Johnson and also build this creative cabinet of environmental justice workers from El Vejo and other organizations throughout the Southeast side and around the city of Black and brown women who are at the forefront of this movement. So seeing that they now, it's a cliche that I don't usually like, but have a formal spot at the table, what does that make possible in terms of not just efforts from the grassroots, but also in halls of power and in between. And so that is a really exciting thing to see, that Hazel's legacy is not just something in a textbook or not something folks can just learn about in a podcast, but it's actually like the ground rule of how folks are supposed to operate.
Yeah, it's creating a pathway toward repair.
And
Man,
yeah. And also just, grateful to see the rich network of storytelling and media making that is in the city. So even us being here in this show, for example, like this wouldn't have been possible without our partnership with Elevate. And so I think these models, which Respair is aiming to build and nurture, where folks aren't, taking their ball and going home, but how do we actually collaborate to tell stories that get erased or get overlooked, because, we're talking about folks on the ground, we're talking about the grassroots, and usually folks don't pony up dollars or pony up their energy to uplift these stories. And so I'm really excited to see on a generational level, as we're seeing new leaders step into place, what these ecosystems can really grow into being.
Yeah. Well, Help This Garden Grow is by Respair Production and Media, Elevate, and Peoples for Community Recovery, PCR. And we're just so thankful for your time, praying for your work, and just want to continue to ask you to keep doing what you're doing until you can't do it no more. That's what we said. So up next is Amrit Sooch, and we'll leave you with a trailer, and then Amrit Sooch will take the mic for the next segment.
On the far south side of Chicago, between the Calumet River and 130th Street, between the Bishop Ford Expressway and a forest preserve, between a water treatment plant and a landfill, there's a constellation of industry causing some of the most destructive environmental impacts imaginable.
There's also a community.
Altgeld Gardens is a community of Black people that has existed for 75 years.
Hazel Johnson, a member of that community, fought to breathe where the air, water, and soil were poisonous.
How can I fight something that I don't know what's going on? But if I'm here, I can fight. And that's the reason why I stay here, because I like to fight for my rights.
My mother just started talking to her neighbors and finding out that kids as young as 2 years old, girls, 3 girls, they didn't have one cancer, they had multiple cancer. And my mother just said, there's just too many people in her neighborhood that are suffering with cancer. Something wrong.
She grew a multiracial coalition to challenge the environmental racism at the roots of Chicago and help birth the modern environmental justice movement.
Now, her daughter Cheryl Johnson and an ecosystem of Chicagoans are demanding, imagining, and enacting transformation that repairs the harm and transforms our city and world.
Oh, how she used to say this? She used to say, living in your own shoebox is better than living in anybody else's mansion. But you have to take care of your own shoebox.
This is Help This Garden Grow, an audio documentary series from Respair Production and Media, Elevate, and People for Community Recovery. Coming July 27th, 2023.
Hi, I'm Amrit Sooch, and I'm excited to chat with Justin Keller, Water Program Strategist with Elevate. Thanks for joining us today, Justin.
Thanks for having me.
So you're here to talk about water affordability, but what do you mean by that? What is water affordability?
Water affordability is the interaction of 2 factors. You have the cost of service, but there's also the household's income, which has a big impact. That means there's really no such thing as an affordable water rate. So the same water bill, meaning the same rate for the same quantity of water, could be very affordable for one household, but really unaffordable for another household because the income is such an important factor.
I understand Elevate looked at water affordability in Chicago. What did you find?
Yeah, we looked at residential water rates throughout northeastern Illinois, and we found that over the course of a decade, water rates rose nearly 80%. Then just within the city of Chicago, we also looked at residential water bills, and we found that for the lowest income residents, the average percent of income going towards their water bill was 10%. So pretty significant. And this impact is not evenly distributed around the city. We found that majority Black, Latino, and Asian census tracts were paying on average a higher percent of their income on their water bills than accounts in majority white tracts. And Chicago's lowest income tracts, which are majority Black, were paying on average 19% of their income on their water bill. The analysis also found that there was a difference between homes that had a meter versus unmetered account, where the unmetered was paying more on average. And there's also a difference by the building size. And in that case, the 2-unit buildings on average were paying the most on their water bills.
I see. Yeah, wow, it's so heartbreaking to hear about how many people can't afford water.
Yeah.
So what can Chicago residents do if they can't afford their water bills?
Starting in July of 2020, Chicago launched the Utility Billing Relief Program aimed at helping people with their water and sewer bills. The program has three parts. There's a 50% rate reduction in water and sewer charges, as well as the water sewer tax. Then there's a chance for all past due balances on the utility bill to be just completely wiped out after 1 year in the program. And then they also suspend penalties and debt collection while people are enrolled. So pretty significant, but there are eligibility requirements. It's only eligible for people in a single family home or a 2-unit building. The person who's applying has to own and reside in the property. And then there are income eligibility requirements. So for a family of 4, for example, there's a maximum gross monthly income of $5,000. But people can search for information and apply online. Just search for utility billing relief or contact CEDA to help with the application.
That's great. I'm really glad to hear that resources out there. How has the program helped with water affordability so far?
It's really helped a lot. We did an analysis at Elevate about 1 year after the program launched, and we found that more than 3,000 households had successfully completed the 1 year in the program, and the combined debt that was forgiven was $3.5 million.
Wow.
There was another about 9,000 households currently in their first year, and if all of them completed the program, that's another 11.6 million that could be forgiven. But then looking at individual households, the ones that had their debt forgiven, the average forgiven was $1,200, but there were much higher balances like $10,000, $20,000, even $30,000 in debt forgiven. So it's really having an impact, but there's more to do. There's a lot of households that are eligible, they meet the requirements, but they're not currently enrolled. Maybe they haven't heard about the program, or they didn't feel comfortable providing the documents required. And then there are many more households that are just not eligible. So I said it's for single family homes or 2-unit buildings, but there's also 3-unit buildings, 4-unit buildings, or people who are just above the income requirements. Basically, there's a lot more households that really need help. And for the households that aren't eligible, there are things they can do to lower their water costs at home. There are some expensive options like replacing your washing machine, your dishwasher, your toilet with more water efficient models. But even leaky faucet or the leaky toilet flapper, if those things are just constantly dripping 24 hours a day, that can really add up. So you want to address those. You can change your behaviors like taking shorter showers, turning off the tap when you brush your teeth, running full loads of laundry. All these things can really add up. And finally, you should pay attention to your water bill.
That was all really great information, Justin. One more time, where can people go to receive assistance?
Yeah, they can search online for utility billing relief or contact CEDA for help with the application.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us for Elevating Our Stories. Thanks to Lace, Tina, Damon, and Daniel of the AirGo podcast, Justin, my co-hosts, Pastor Booker Vance and Sylvia Ewing, and everyone who made this program possible. If you like the show, tell a friend. I'm Amrit Sooch. See you next time. And until then, follow us on social media and be well.